Hi, everyone. This is Tiffany Douglas, one of the trainers here at Broadview, and today's session is on the OfficeSuite Readiness tool. We're very excited to share this tool with you. It's a very, very valuable tool that allows you to do a true long duration test rather than some other carriers that offer just a simple speed test that looks at data at one point in time. This is truly over a long duration, as many as 7 days or actually even more. You can run the test again, and it really gives you peace of mind, gives the customer peace of mind that their network is completely ready to handle voice over IP, and gives lots of other great information. So I'm here in the My OfficeSuite agent portal, and I'm on the News and Links tab, and we're going to come down here to where it says OfficeSuite Readiness Test, so the ORT. Before I dive into that, I will point out one other thing, the agent materials here. If you are brand new to the My OfficeSuite agent portal, I suggest that you come into the agent materials and go to the video section and watch the full video of all the pieces of the My OfficeSuite agent portal. Today's focus is simply on the ORT. So I'm going to go back to News and Links. Then I'll come down here to OfficeSuite Readiness Test and click on that. All right, so here we are within the OfficeSuite Readiness Test. And to get it started, we come up to the top of the page and we choose if it's going to run on a personal computer or a network appliance. That's completely up to you. So if you're familiar and comfortable with configuring appliances and you rather physically go to the customer's location and plug the appliance into their network, you can do that. You can also simply send a link to them that they click on any computer that is connected to their network. So it's all about, personal preference. For this example, I'll choose personal computer. We'll give it a test name. Reference ID is completely optional. So you may want to give it some kind of ticket number, maybe that matches something on your end that you use for your agency to keep track of things. Maybe you want to give it the name of the location, because if the customer has multiple locations, you'll want to do multiple tests. So that's completely optional if you want to use a reference ID. And then you certainly need to say the number of max concurrent calls. So let's say 20. Then we click continue. And this is what will pop up. So if you're simply doing a personal computer, which means you're emailing a link to the customer and then they're clicking on it from their machine, this is going to pop up and it's going to have great information you can send to them. There's also a pop-up here because we were having some issues with Java. Now it no longer requires for Java to be downloaded. So that's a nice little upgrade there. And then what I can do is I can see everything that will be sent to the customer. I come down to the bottom, I click copy instructions. Then I would simply go into my email, paste the email, and send it to the customer. And it's going to tell them everything that they need to do. So it tells them, what does the test do? How do I proceed? It tells them to click the link. Then they're going to have a little pop-up, and it's going to ask them for their test identifier. Then they're going to paste in their identifier, and it's going to start running. And if you go and look at my machine, I'll close this out. If we look here, I actually am currently running a test right now. So this just kind of sits in the background until I want to stop running the test. But we will just minimize that. All right, so what does the test look like? What are the results going to show me? Let's take a look at this location right here. I'll click this little button to view the test results. Now, up at the top, I can, of course, go back to the console, refresh. I can export to PDF. This is really helpful because the customers aren't going to have access to this tool. Only you are, but you can export the results and share with them. So you can easily share the information. It's going to remind me what IP address was used, how many concurrent calls, and I can see so far it's run a total of 80 tests. So what it does is every 15 minutes, it does a 30-second test. And that can go for as long as 7 days straight. So it's a true long duration test. It gives a ton of information that you can see down here. And we'll come back to these buttons up top in a minute. So first we see basic speed test results. So this section right here is similar to what some other carriers offer. It's a one point in time. You can find all kinds of tests and things online that would do this kind of test. It looks at download, upload. We've also added in consistency and delay. Then over on the right, we have even more things. So this is more of the technical stuff over here on the right. So jitter, packet loss, MOS score, which we'll talk about. So far, the test is looking pretty darn good because it's all green and there's just one red item right here. Now, let's say you're not a very technical person and this stuff that you're seeing over here on the right doesn't mean a whole lot. Well, don't worry. Over on the left, we have the results in plain English. I'm seeing 5 green circles here, so everything's good. This customer is good to go. The network that they have now can definitely handle voice over IP. And it's based on bandwidth, jitter, packet loss, and MOS score. Now, let's say you want to know a little bit more about those items, or maybe the results were not favorable. Maybe you saw a yellow light or a red light next to one of these options, and you want to read a little bit more. You click right here, Interpreting Test Results, and it gives you great information. So first, it simply explains what MOS is, right? And it tells you how it scores, right? So 5 is the best score, 1 is the worst score. And then it actually goes into the top 5 most common causes of VoIP quality issues and even how to resolve them. And that's where we stand out from our competitors as well. So not only are we going to tell you what it is, but we're going to tell you what you can do to help fix it. So it goes through latency, it goes through jitter, right? So just as an example, it explains what jitter is, and then one of the first things to check when jitter readings are high are the QoS settings of the network. It's important that voice traffic is given priority. So it gives you tips on how to address these different factors, okay? So we'll close out of that. Then we'll keep going down a little bit more. Then we've got our firewall section, so it lets you know if all the right ports are open. In this case, they were. So we're all good there. And then as we keep scrolling, it's simply a graphical analysis of the information that you're seeing above. So it's showing us the MOS score for every single test. I think this chart's pretty cool because you can see there was a handful of dips in the MOS score, right? So there's one that's here that's pretty low, one here that's pretty low. I can hover over those data points and I can see exactly why the MOS score was bad. So this one that I'm hovering over right now is because of the jitter. So you can see the jitters in red. And then also the average delay is in orange or yellow. So I can even see patterns here. Maybe it's at the same time every day that I get that unfavorable score because something happens with my network every time at that day. I download, some huge file or whatever that may be. You might be able to identify what those patterns are. So as I keep scrolling, I also, of course, see a chart for my upload and download bandwidth. We indicated that I think we said 20 SCCs, and that's why this green bar is way down here because you don't need a ton of bandwidth to support 20 SCCs. So compared to the bandwidth that we need as what we're seeing, we have more than enough bandwidth to handle those SCCs. If I went into the test details and I changed my number of SCCs, let's say I changed it to 50, this green bar would move up. I wouldn't have to redo the test. And it would probably show that the bandwidth could still handle even 50 SCCs. Same thing with jitter. I can see all the data points. Packet loss, I can see all the data points. And then here's all the test results. So I can see in chart form every single test that was run. And then again, I have my options down here at the bottom, the same ones that I had at the top. So if I want to export this information and share it with the customer, I can do that. So again, just to reiterate, this can be such a valuable tool, especially maybe you're dealing with a customer that they've never used voice over IP before. They're a little scared of it. This lets them know, hey, your network's ready to handle it. There's nothing wrong with your network. There's no reason why you can handle voice over IP. It's also great because it lets us identify, let's say there is something that's not configured in a way that's ideal to handle voice over IP, we can find it ahead of time, make those tweaks before we provision them, and now their cutover is going to go much more smoothly. It's not a great experience for the customer when we're cutting them over and something doesn't go perfectly, and it could have been something that we addressed beforehand. This is absolutely something that you guys can use as a selling tool and use at that time that you're getting the paperwork to the customer and just making sure that they feel comfortable and making sure that provisioning process goes smoothly. So let's scroll back up to the top, and we're going to come back to these last 2 buttons that I mentioned. So this take a snapshot. It allows me to capture a point in time and what those results were. So let's say you let the test run for 2 days. And maybe the results weren't great. You had some stuff in yellow, you had some stuff in red, you felt like there were some things that you needed to adjust. Before you make that adjustment, you might want to come in here and take a snapshot. So I'll click take a snapshot, and you could say, excuse me, during this snapshot that you're taking, what were the results, right? Were they poor? Were they average? Were they good? Were they awesome? Should they be a benchmark to, compare to later? Let's say they were poor, right? I would click continue. Now I've already done this, so I won't click it, but I would click continue, and then it would save that point in time and give it that call quality label. So let's X this out, since I already did this actually yesterday in preparation for today. So now you have your snapshot, right? So now let's say you let the test run for another 2 days. You come back into the system and you click compare to snapshot. Now, it knows that I've already labeled the test that I'm looking at right now, King of Prussia location, so that's what the system thinks I want to search for. I can certainly clear this out and click search, and it's going to show me everything. But you want to go back and compare to that same customer. So let's see, I think it's on page 2. Here we go. So here's the snapshot that I saved yesterday, and I gave it a label of poor as far as call quality. So I'm going to click on that. And now I have my comparison side by side. So here's the original snapshot that I took. Again, I gave it that label of poor, and now it's comparing it to the overall results. So I can see side by side how things are starting to change. Now, it's comparing the overall results to the snapshot. So it's actually lumping everything together here in this first column. So let's say that you wanted to do a little bit differently. Let's say you want to take your snapshot, tweak some of the settings, and then compare to only the test results that came in after you made the change. In that case, you would say to the customer, hey, go into your test, and here's my test that's running right now. You would have them stop the test, and then you would just send them a new link. Because you saw before, I could compare to any test I wanted to. So you could compare a snapshot to any other test. So you would just label it properly for that customer. Maybe even you label it, test number 2, or you give the dates that you're running the test. And then you can truly get a side-by-side of, here's what it looked like before I made the adjustment. Here's what it looked like after I made the adjustment. All right, so I'm going to close this snapshot out. I'm going to return to the console. We'll look at a few other quick things. On this page, you can easily see which tests are currently running because you're seeing a last reported results in green. You can see this row down here. This went the full 7 days. 672 tests is the max test that you would get if you let it run for 7 days straight. We can see this one has even more than 672. So that means we have the customer restart the test even after the 7 days. We can come over here to the right. I can edit any one of the tests. So for example, if I click the edit button here, you can see I can even give it a reference ID later. I can change my concurrent calls. I can clear the test history. This is most commonly used if you decide to go the appliance route. So instead of emailing the link to the customer, you rather physically plug an appliance in. This lets you clear the history from that appliance. Okay, can also resend that same software to the client. So that's how we would have them restart the test again. So it's the same test row, but it's much more than 672 tests because we had them started again. And then of course I can delete any rows that I don't need. Now the last thing that I want to touch on is the FAQs up here in the top right corner. There's some really, really great information in here. So we'll open that up. The beginning is some basics, and it's some of the same things that we saw inside of that interpreting test results box. It tells us what MOS is, what latency is, what jitter is. So it's explaining a lot of the basics regarding the tests. And then if you want to get a little bit more technical or get into some troubleshooting items, this administration has some great things in here. So for example, what ports should be open? I can click into that and it's going to tell me. These are the ports that I should have. Okay, I can also see, for example, I can, can I run it on Windows? Absolutely. Can I run it on Linux? Yes, as well. Now, as far as Apple computers go, specifically OS X-based operating systems, right now we cannot run the tool on those. So you definitely want to choose a Windows machine or something running Linux to run that test. All right, then it also has some other good information here. For example, can it be built on a test appliance? So this actually walks you through, if you rather go that appliance route, it'll walk you through those steps and show you how to do that. And then a couple other things I want to touch on, just some common issues that we've seen with customers having issues running the test. One of those things is permissions. Close this out. So if a customer tries to run the test and they get some kind of a pop-up saying, there's a problem running the software, check that your computer can run files from and save files to, and then, insert some folder here. That's a pretty good sign that they don't have the necessary rights or privileges on the machine. So either they want to have their admin run the test, or they want to have the admin give them permission to run that test. Another thing that we'll run into sometimes is antivirus. So sometimes it'll think like, hey, is this something bad? Do we really want to let this into the network? There's definitely nothing for you to worry about. You definitely want to give ORT the permission to run. If you do decide to temporarily disable the antivirus to let it run, then of course you want to make sure you re-enable it. But in most cases, you can simply give ORT permission to run. And just so you know, in case if the customer is ever worried about, is this really safe to run this tool? Is it looking at my personal information? They have nothing to worry about. The app does not transmit any personal data. It simply performs OfficeSuite relevant tests regarding things like speed, VoIP, blocked ports, etc. So it's completely secure. We're not looking at any of their private information, and there's nothing for them to worry about. So hopefully you learned a lot in today's session about the OfficeSuite Readiness tool. This should be a huge help as far as a closing tool with your customers to make them feel confident about VoIP and confident about Broadview. With that, have a great day.